Hey everyone, Davey here back again to review another episode of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and this time it is for episode 15 of the second season entitled When One Door Closes. One door closes, not one. It's very easy to fall into that one. But if the next episode is not titled Another One Opens, I'm gonna lose it. And contrary to how last week's episode was, where it was more like build up to something that was gonna get things moving and be much more action packed, this was that episode that was much more action packed, but at the same time it had enough moments that gave us some more background history to some of these characters and to also some of the events that transpired in Captain America the Winter Soldier, as well as blending them in with some really intense scenes and very exciting action-packed sequences. And that's the thing, is that even though there was an awful lot of action in this episode, an awful lot of chasing and trying to find out who did what, it's very hard to talk about this episode because there's not a whole lot to talk about. Even though a lot happened, a lot of significant things happened. When you actually start talking about it, you condense it, and you don't really have an awful lot to say. As even though I pretty much love this episode. And picking up from last week, Coulson and May suspect that Mac and Bobby are hiding something. And instead of beating around the bush, Coulson just straight up says, "Dude, I know you're hiding something. So what's going on?" And the similar thing gets going with Bobby. May, in fact, finds her out trying to get the cube out of Coulson's desk, and it is here where the two become fugitives, and Coulson and his team try to track them down, and essentially do manage to capture them at one point. But unfortunately, it's too late. Bobby let out this video message saying that, "Hey, I got the cube," so Gonzalez and his team infiltrate S.H.I.E.L.D. What they perceive to be a bootleg version of S.H.I.E.L.D. led by Coulson to capture Coulson as well as the rest of the team. And they make their presence known that, hey, we're not necessarily the bad guys, but we do need to compromise this place because it's just not fit to be called S.H.I.E.L.D. And this led to some really great character moments, some badass moments like Simmons's method of taking down Bobby. That was a really awesome moment. I was like, yes, that was cool, that was clever, handled very well. And the fact that May was the one that actually escaped out of all this, giving the opportunity for Coulson to also get away while at the same time handing herself in, because she feels that Coulson is the one that, without him there's no S.H.I.E.L.D., like she said. And again, another great character moment was actually this conversation between Coulson and Gonzalez. I keep wanting to say Rodriguez. I don't know why. Maybe it's because his first name is Robert. But anyways, this moment between the two was really well done because both of these actors were doing a fantastic job. And at the same time, you actually get this sense of... you know how in old westerns where two friends became enemies to one another, but then when they see each other, they don't immediately want to fight. They just look at each other like, yeah, you remember the good old times. It felt like that. I got that Western vibe from that scene, from this scene between Coulson and Gonzalez. Now, don't get me wrong. I was happy to see that Coulson was the one to escape, so that then he can team up with Hunter, who also escaped after last week's episode, and it creates some sort of plan to get his S.H.I.E.L.D. team back from Gonzalez. But preferably, I would have liked it if May was the one that escaped to work with Hunter instead of Coulson. And at first it seemed that way, but then she gives herself up to give Coulson some time to get ahead. I kind of wish it was May because I like that idea. I like that May was the one that was going to escape and be the badass to break Coulson and his team out from this real S.H.I.E.L.D. But still, I'm very happy that Coulson is the one. And I love how him and Hunter got together there in... what might just be Tahiti, who knows? And even after all the shit that just happened, all the secrets and all the betrayal, they're treating it very nonchalant, like it was just another day in the office. Now, while all this is going on, Skye is in her cabin still trying to come to terms with her powers and figuring out whether or not she should wear these things that Simmons created for her and whether or not it's the right move. But Gordon actually shows up at her cabin after she actually makes the revelation that this entire cabin is basically just one big cage, a similar cage they had in the bus. And afterwards, Gordon arrives in a very welcoming manner. And this is probably the first time we actually get formally introduced to Gordon. I mean, we got a proper introduction with that flashback of him and Skye's mother when he barely got acquainted with his powers and he was frightened and very scared and didn't know what to do, which was a very great character moment for Gordon. So to then bring him in this scene formally introducing himself to not just us, the audience, but also to Sky, and also reference that scene where he met Sky's mother for the first time and embraced him. He finds a way to talk to Sky in a very vague and at the same time revealing manner, withholding some information like the fact that he took Reina and Sky's father, but at the same time letting Sky hear what she not necessarily wants to hear in the broad aspect of things, but at that very moment, because she's very vulnerable and scared about what she has become, she hears the right things through Gordon, the relatable things, even if it gets the right idea across her mind. Like, you know, when he was talking about the things on Sky's forearms, and Sky's like, no, Simmons is a scientist. She's a friend. You know, she's doing this to help me. And he's like, you sure that this is not to just help out other people to keep them from getting killed? But at the same time, I don't know. This is a cool character, even if he becomes a villain, or he turns out to be a villain, which he might just be. I think he's going to be some kind of relatable villain, or possibly even an anti-hero. One that you can actually see where they're coming from, because they've been there. They have a logic to their thinking. And I'm definitely looking forward to seeing more of Gordon, not just in the show, but also possibly in the Humans movie, because so far he looks like a neat character, even if he turns out to be somewhat of an anti-hero or antagonist in general. And being that he takes Sky away at the end of this episode, possibly to meet up with her father and with Reina and form the Inhumans in some type of way, not fully, not to the way that they're going to be introduced in the movie, but, you know, like a small little taste of what's to come in that movie. Not just with that reunion, but also with the demonstration of Sky's power at the end of this episode, where the real S.H.I.E.L.D. not only apprehends Coulson and his team, but also they send out Bobby, can't remember the character's name, but Kirk Cavaceto's character, as well as a team of agents, to go and get Sky from this cabin, and it is here where she demonstrates her powers. And you can actually see the destructive effect of what they can do. We got an idea of what they can do, especially when she was actually down in the cave in the mid-season finale, but it is here that not only is this your first time seeing that since then, but you can see what kind of damage it could cause to humans. Actually, Kirk Cavaceto's character might have possibly suffered a fatal injury due to that. I mean, he looked like he was still alive, but who knows how long he's got after getting impaled with that branch. And that was a really good effect. The visual effects are really stepping up this season, especially with the Quinjets hovering over the forest and painting a scene almost out of The Fugitive. Like, Sky was the fugitive. And that was just a really well done scene. And being that she was very scared at that moment, scared of herself, she didn't know who to call on than Gordon, and he takes her away. So it's like he did it with Reina and with her father, and chances are we're going to catch up with them in either the next episode or the one after that. Now, the only other thing that was intertwined with all this stuff going on in this episode that I think really benefited the episode, and I'm glad that they saved it for this one, because I think it was well placed. Because in any other episode, sure, we could have gotten an idea why they were giving us these flashbacks, but I loved how it tied in to how much loyalty these people have with one another, even if Coulson's version of S.H.I.E.L.D. doesn't really trust them. And that was the flashbacks with Mac and Bobby and even Gonzalez back to this episode calls it, the day S.H.I.E.L.D. fell, where Winter Soldier happened, the events of Winter Soldier happened, Hydra revealed themselves, and we're back on the aircraft carrier out in the sea that not only is the real S.H.I.E.L.D. Stationed in, but also that was the same carrier that Captain America was in Winter Soldier. So that was a really nice tie-in, and at the same time, it was a really good look back at the history that these two generated with one another, and why they're so loyal to one another, as well as being loyal to Gonzalez and making him the leader of. Well, he was already the leader, but giving him the proper respect that they want to give him. After the events that happened on this aircraft carrier. And another neat thing that these flashback scenes did was bring back, I believe her name was Hartley, Lucy Lawless's I can never pronounce her last name properly whenever there's like possession, grammar added to it. Lucy Lawless's character from the season premiere where she appeared for only one episode and unfortunately she got killed off. But now, I'm not saying it didn't make sense before, but now it even makes more sense why she was there when Bobby, Hunter, and her were present as mercenaries for Coulson's team. Now it makes sense, or way more sense. And again, this was a really nice look at their loyalty, and it does a tremendous job at fleshing these characters out. And I definitely care for them more than I did before. So another terrific episode from S.H.I.E.L.D. that was very action-packed, but at the same time, they do something that even some movies nowadays don't do very well, and that is flesh out characters while the action is happening. Don't do it in an unnatural way, but know when to put in a character moment, and then when to give us an exciting fight. And especially one in here where we had a little fight between May and Bobby that was brutal. I kind of wish they would have grounded it a little bit more by having those two characters have like some kind of wounds on their face, like a bloody lip or somewhat of a black eye, because how many times do we see these characters, especially the women, get into fights only to walk away with it almost unscathed? Every now and then they do add a touch of realism by having them have a bloody nose or something, but for the most part, whenever May or Bobby get into a fight and they get punched, they look just fine, makeup and all, by the end of the fight. But anyways, minor nitpicks aside, I still really enjoyed this episode. Very great character moments. I didn't even talk about how they were creating a divide amongst characters that kind of bonded with one another. Bobby and Simmons, Mac and Fitz, and now they're kind of at odds with each other. That I felt a sense of emotion there. Plus, very interested to see where Sky's plot and how that develops, being that we're sure in for some kind of confrontation between father and daughter in the preceding episodes, possibly even the next one. So for that, I give when one door opens. I keep wanting to say one, but I give One Door Opens a low 9 out of 10. So let me know what you guys thought of this week's episode of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Where do you think we're going to go from here, being that Coulson's version of S.H.I.E.L.D. is practically out of the game? I was left wondering the same thing as Hunter was by the end of this episode. What's the plan now? Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.